listening to the Straight to Video podcast with Rob Lane.
Hey, what's happening, or should I say what you got going, as we head into another Straight to Video podcast. And on this episode, I get to bring you a talk with a bona fide sleaze rock legend in the form of Davy Vain, lead singer for San Francisco rockers VAIN, whose 1989 debut album No Respect is to this day regarded as one of the finest of the entire hard rock movement. Despite being released under a cloud of record company nightmares, it didn't stop a generation of rockers falling in love with the quality songs which still sound as edgy and vital to this day. The anthem Beat the Bullet was without doubt a Nottingham Rock City floor filler, with the likes of Smooth Up from the Bullet Boys and Guns Word Up, before the latter was even released as an official single, of course. Today, Davy is a much in-demand music producer who in the past has worked with the likes of songwriting powerhouse Linda Perry of Four Non Blondes, but the production work doesn't get in the way of new VAIN material, and Davy and the band are back with a brand new record, Disintegrate Together, which is out now. We chat all about the songs on the record and find out that some of them date back to the early days of the band, along with some great stories of VAIN's early trip to the UK with Skid Row and some adventures that occurred along the way. Davy is a talker, and he's in right out of the gate, along with a special guest appearance throughout the entire chat from his parrot Sushi, in case you're wondering what the background noise is. As always, this Straight to Video podcast is proudly presented to you in association with Affinity Photo, an incredible piece of photo editing software which I use all the time for graphic design. Affinity Photo is used to create the podcast episode artwork you see each week, and it's an extremely affordable alternative to other programs on the market. So please, if you can, check them out at affinity.serif.com. Alright, let's dive into this week's episode. The new album from VAIN, called Disintegrate Together, is out now and available from davyvain.com. But for now, please enjoy my straight to video chat with Mr. Davy Vain. Where are you at the moment?
I'm in the Bay Area, California. San Rafael is the town I live in now. I used to live in Sausalito, which is right across the bridge. But I ended up getting together with a girl from Sweden. And when she moved over here, she thought it was too cold there, which is kind of funny, because it's cold as shit in Sweden. But sometimes the fog rolls in. In San Rafael, it's weird. It's only like if you live right near the city, sometimes fog just will roll in. It's really pretty, though, over these hills. And it's like just so thick that you could see it, And sometimes it can get kind of cold. Like I've been there just freezing my ass off and called someone where I live now, which is like 15, 20 minutes up the road, and they're swimming, you know what I mean?
Well, my wife and I got married in San Francisco back in 2010, and I'd been out to Hollywood a few times, and we got married in the summer, so I figured it's on the same coast, we just same clothes, didn't take any hoodies or long sleeve stuff. The afternoon we got there, it was like, holy shit.
Oh yeah, we're always, not you, but we're always cracking up because I'll go across the bridge and there's all these tourists in shorts and t-shirts, and wind is howling. It's like you're out at sea, and they're just freezing their asses off. But then if it's beautiful, it's incredible. Like when I lived in Sausalito, they have the ferry. I don't know if you guys ended up taking it. There's a ferry that goes from Sausalito to San Francisco, and it goes right past Alcatraz and stuff. And it's like that ferry. When I lived in Sausalito, it's a beautiful day and it's warm. Sometimes I would just jump on that and just ride it back and forth just because it was just so nice out at the water. But it's not like that very much. But where we live now, since it's a little bit north of that, it's like, the fog. If you go to Sausalito, you just see a wall, and okay, I'm entering it, So it's cool. And I'm only like 10 minutes from my studio here too. My recording studio that I have. So everything's really close. Where we recorded the record and stuff too,
VAIN are back with a brand new album, Disintegrate Together. How long has this album been in the works? Because it's been 6 years, I think, since the last album, Rolling with the Punches. But when did you start work on this one?
You know what? I'm always working on something. So probably before that was even done. I like more songs than we can get together and jam on and stuff. How we kind of do it now, since everybody's so spread out, we've been doing it for years now. Since I'm the songwriter, I'll come up with some stuff that I really want to hear, and then I'll jam on it with like usually Louie and Ash, and sometimes Tommy and Ash, depending on what track it is, or It's usually me and Louie and Ash if we're not like ready to make the record, or once we're into like, okay, we're putting a record together. Here's some more songs for the record. Then I'll have Tommy do some stuff, especially if it's a song that's an older song that he played on that we never used or something. So I start getting into it. Like I've already just recorded last week. I already recorded a new song because I've been writing a bunch of stuff and then I can work on it because the lyrics take the longest time to finish. And usually most of the bands when I'm a producer, I'm working with other artists and other singers I've talked to. That's kind of the thing that takes the longest to get done, especially if you want to make them good. This is like our 9th album now. That's a lot of lyrics. There's only so many ways to say, like, I want to fuck you, or I love you, or, we're going to rock the night, or whatever, And it was really easy back in the day. I would write a couple songs like every day. We were just all living, in Haight-Ashbury and San Francisco. And we were basically a bunch of small town boys, really, Santa Rosa. It's like, kind of a suburb town, about an hour from the city. And so we decided to move there, and our manager moved there. She was young too, and was a promoter and owned a record store at like 18 and was, like really, a hipster. And so I would just be working on songs all day. And even when I got bored and I wanted to go like meet chicks or go have a coffee, Haight Street's like, I don't know if you've been there before. It's like, a tourist kind of thing. And even then I'd be thinking about songs, and there was a music store there too. And sometimes I'd walk in and grab a guitar just to fuck around because I needed to get out of the house and go, ooh, this is a cool riff. And back then there was no phones. I didn't have a tape recorder on, So I'm just like, oh shit, I better go. I'd be working on it. Hey, can I just hang on? And the guy would go, oh, sure, man. He thought it would be cool. Are you writing a song right now? And I go, yeah, man. So I'd come up with these songs, and the lyrics were really easy for me then because I had a lot of just hunger, to make it and rock. And just, when you're young and the challenge of meeting some girl somewhere, it's like funner. When you're a guy, it's funner than, getting the date, like trying to get a chick's number, especially one that was straight and looked at you weird when you had long hair and fucking leftover eyeliner on from a show or something. So, there's a lot of stuff to talk about and say. And then, that was like my first big love of my life, that I met this chick that was just like a goddess to me, and it was really rocky. So like no respect about her. And, there was just real stuff to write about, that stuff that kind of challenges you more when you're young and dumb and full of cum. So it was really easy. I try much harder now on my lyrics than I did then. And I listen to them now and I'm pretty happy with them. But, now I'm really, pushing the envelope. At least I'm trying, like, that's too typical, or, oh, that's typical, but I like it because it needs to be that way, or it needs to be direct. But I put a lot more thought into it. It's kind of funny, too. After our first record, the guy that signed us really dug us some stuff. And he was like a fan, but he goes, hey, have you ever think of reading like a lot of books and stuff? And I go, yeah, I used to as a kid, but I don't really have time to sit down and read and shit now. And, and he's like, yeah, it really help your lyric writing. And I thought, oh, wow, does he think my lyric writing's not that good or something? So now I kind of think about him saying that stuff. Like even on a song like Triple X, the Triple X part's kind of typical. Like the chorus is, if she's adults only, then why am I so fucking lonely? Even though that's not the greatest lyric ever, I was like, oh, cool. Adults only and lonely. I don't think I've ever heard that written before. You know what I mean? And maybe it is somewhere, but it's not the most typical kind of a thing. So I'm always trying to do that. Like I said, we just did another song. So when we started this album, to get back to your question, I'm always thinking we're going to do another album, but it's never like, okay, today the album starts.
It's just an ongoing process.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process because everybody's so busy, and it's pretty much me kind of just getting everything going. And then we'll have a couple songs, we'll have jams. Then when we really go, okay, now I'm getting some stuff together, we'll have like several recording sessions. It's not like, okay, here we are, let's get these 10 songs recorded. You know what I mean? There's 2 different drummers on there. I mean, I'm playing a lot of guitar since I'm cutting a lot of the basic tracks. When Delana's doing her guitar parts, then I'll just be like, hey, if you want to just do that over, that's okay. Or, hey, I love what I did. Or, hey, what do you think of that solo? I just did that live off the floor. It's got a cool vibe, though, but I wanted the guys to know, like, here's the solo. So me playing a solo, the energy is what it's really about, capturing the energy and vibe. And for instance, on the song, like nobody really knows the songs on this album yet, but like on the song Greener, that solo I did off the floor, and I never even bent any strings. because I didn't want to be out of tune because I wanted to keep my rhythm track, off the floor because we were grooving and it wasn't on a click track. And I knew that Delana was going to play later on it too. And we would be the two guitar players on that. And then when I sent it to her, I go, hey, you can do that over. She's like, oh, I just dig it, So sometimes it'll work like that. And that's just kind of how it goes now. And now when we play it live, then Joel ends up playing that because that's my lead, you know what I mean? So it's like our other guitar player. So that's kind of how the genesis of everything starts. Then I figure out what songs we're going to do. And like the song Holding On for Love was one of the earliest Vain songs that I wrote when we first got together. So I didn't want to really play on that one because I never played guitar originally on that one.
When you say one of the original songs, are you going like way, way back?
Yeah, one of our most early songs. The first demo we did of it was at just some guy's house before that was a usual thing like now. He was this weird dude that just showed up in our town. It was before we even moved to San Francisco. He was this weird dude that just showed up in our town with this giant truck full of equipment and lights and PAs and recording gear. And he was from back east and just was a strange dude and just kind of got in the scene. He ended up doing our lights because he had all these lights and stuff. Played guitar too. And he never really tried to get into band. He just wanted to hang out with them. He thought we were the best band that he saw since he was out and wanted to be part of it. So we recorded that song there. We ended up never doing it because we didn't play it live that much. It just kind of was our first period. And it's also got a super high chorus, very top of my register, And I'm not sure why we just stopped playing it, just because we thought we had better songs, because when I was writing songs when I lived in the city, everybody in the band and management thought that they liked those songs better because I had a different perspective on life living in a city and starving to death and having bartenders feed us to survive and going into like a weird store where they're playing like Bauhaus and the guy that's selling shoes there looks cooler than any band, and he's not even trying to be a rock star. Just like all those influences sunk in on us then, But we didn't decide to throw away main roots, which was 70s rock, which were rock stars, like Aerosmith, Van Halen, AC/DC. We still wanted to be that big stadium kind of a rock band, but we were living in kind of a hip alternative, the original alternative stuff, not all the Seattle stuff, like Bauhaus, and you'd hear in the little weird clubs that we'd hang out and drink. But then we'd end up playing across the city at the Stone, which was where all the kids came from out of town that lived in the suburbs to go see bands. So we kind of crossed all that stuff together. So the song Holding On for Love, there's a demo online and a lot of people like it, even though it's slowed down. A lot of these cassette demos sound weird by the time they reach the internet. And then when we were doing the album Fade, we decided to do a different version of it. We changed the key. I always thought it was a cool version, but then when we decided to do this record, so many people were commenting on the original demo, and I just go, you know what, let's do that over again and do it like the original demo, exactly like it. It's kind of funny because then I thought, okay, there's that part I haven't sang in a long time, and man, I almost like just fried my voice singing this part. It's so high.
Your voice is great on this album, though, man. Do you have to take care of your voice after all these years? Because it's still top draw.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, no, I try to be mellow on it. I don't go on long tours and just blow the shit out of it. You know what I mean? And I try to warm up even before I record. That's one thing that I like about kind of producing my own singing. In some ways, it's hard to decide which take you like or what you like, but I can go experiment and try different things and work on different lyrics without somebody going, hey, what the fuck? How come you haven't even got this written? Then we usually have somebody mix it so that goes pretty quick. But I mixed this record myself, so that made the process even longer because, if I'm mixing for somebody else, it's like I can do it pretty quick and just go, hey, I think this sounds killer. And the bands are going, hey, can you turn my bass up? Or yeah, or can I make my vocal this? I'm like, sure, yeah. If they want to do something really fucked up, I go, hey, man, that might not be good because blah, 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 X, Y, Z. And then they'll go, oh, yeah, but I think it's hip. And then I'm like, okay, well, this guy probably knows something I don't in the streets right now. Sure, here you go. You know what I mean? I'm just done with it. Then I got it to the point where I go, if they don't like this, it's not my fault. And it's just easy to make decisions. But when your own stuff, it's really hard to be the mixer on your own stuff. But I did have a really good mastering guy that was great. So that when I sent him stuff, I could be, hey, what do you think? You hear anything weird out of my room or, just stuff like that. And he was from Nashville and had this accent. So that was kind of cool. I would bug him so much. And I go, hey, I'm sorry, but is there any way you can just do the one more master of that? And then I'd go, do I owe you more money? And he goes, not yet. So I probably drove him crazy. He goes, yeah, anybody that's mixing their own shit's always like fucking out there.
Do you have to get it to a certain point, then just leave it for a while, then let the ears rest and then come back like a week or so later?
It's hard because when you're tracking everything, I recorded everything to tape, but then it's on Pro Tools, but I'm listening to it all on a big board with everything on channel. And that board has a lot of color. So I'm constantly, when I recorded it, everything I've done, I hear it sound like that. So it really sounds like that board a lot. And when I sent it to somebody else to mix it, maybe some ways it's different and better. And then in other ways it lost something. It doesn't have the sound of that board. And I have a newer version of the board I have now that was used to be owned by Blondie, but was hot rodded since then. And so I go, if I mix it myself, then it'll have this sound the whole time. You know what I mean? But it's a little bit more of a pain in the ass. It's slower. And I mix it all to tape too, which is a slower process. But I wanted to kind of have the sound like the records I love, just the overall vibe of it, you know? So anyway, so that whole process made the whole thing take a lot more time than we thought. Then I was writing songs during the process. So I was like, hey, let's get another recording session. And then I'd get who I thought would be good on it. It's funny because my wife was working for this nonprofit. And they give donations from Costco, like stuff that's brought back, and then they can give it to, you know, people that need it or stuff. But it's mostly for mentally disabled people. And then there's this one really shitty acoustic guitar that's like a beginner guitar you get from Fender. It comes with strings and a pick, you know, and a book, but it's still wood. It's still a Fender. And the E string was kind of fucked up on it. The album was pretty close to getting done. We went to pick it up, and then they go, oh, we don't need this. You're a musician. You want to? I go, that's not a real guitar. I've got like a Gibson Hummingbird. This is like some beginner guitar. And they go, okay, well, if you want it, you can have it because we can't use it for anything. It's just more stuff we got to store. And I go, okay, maybe I know somebody. Maybe somebody wants to take it to the beach or something and beat it. So I grabbed it, and I was just ready to like give it away, call somebody, hey, you want some Beat Runner guitar? And then I ended up picking up my bow, bow, ba-da, ba-da, da-da, 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 and I just did the whole riff of You Better Keep an Eye on That Girl.
That's a great tune as well, man.
Oh, thanks for that. So I just went, oh, shit. This little guitar, I called it Little Costco. I still have it. Little Costco has a song in it. And I had an idea for a song called You Better Keep an Eye on the Girl. Then it's like, if I wouldn't have maybe played that guitar for that 1 second, maybe I wouldn't have come up with that to make me want to finish it. I have a lot of riffs and a lot of ideas. I kind of write verses. That's kind of how I write. I don't really go, here's a giant chorus and let's figure out what to do. I'll just keep playing. And even if it's just something that's really simple or whatever the chord structure is, if I hear a certain chord progression, I instantly hear like, I know what I'm going to do on that, you know, the entire melody. And as soon as I have that and I can do my vibe on that, then I go, okay, this is a song. And then I have to figure out where that's all going. And the verses to me are always the coolest part of songs sometimes because the choruses are kind of sing-alongy with a bunch of production and a lot of bands. So it's sort of like the verses where you can put more of the vibe in it. What I was doing for a while is I have like bags and bags of cassettes of ideas, practices, and a lot of practices from the road crew era too.
Oh, nice.
It's like all the practices, which some of them are funny because you can hear people talking and stuff. That rehearsal place, they would just roll cassettes, the whole practice. And unfortunately, when we get home, Adler would want to listen to him like 24 hours a day till the next practice. And I'm like, God, I'm sick of hearing me. Turn that shit off. So then I heard a riff on it and I go, oh, what's that? And then it's just like, oh, shit, I remember that song. Love that song because I wrote it about that we left San Francisco to do all this shit. And it's like things are going bad now. And, you know, and then I go, oh, we got to do this song too. So that, you know, gave me the idea to do that song. And then there was another song on there that I had a cassette from I think it said 88 on it. And I go, what's this? And I put it on. And all the other songs that I didn't want to reuse or something were just like, oh, you know, I just keep throwing the cassettes out on this one. It was Pictures of You in Red, which is one of the songs on the record. And I went, oh, my God, I remembered that. And I go, what is this? I couldn't even remember. And I go, okay, that's got to be our old practice place. And then I heard Danny talk. And I go, oh, that's us, you know, then. And then all of a sudden there was a riff. And I go, oh, my God, I remember writing that now. So sometimes I'm still reaching from, you know, the past. And this album's kind of there's a lot of themes from back in those days, you know?
Because there's a track actually called Back in 89. What did you draw from on that?
Yeah, that's kind of like, it sounds like it's about a girl, but it's actually about the passion of first making it and the struggle of it and just music, you know, what kind of variety it is. I was flashing back to when we hung out at the Rainbow. We had our new leathers and everybody was just, you know what I mean? It was just like it was almost a religion. It was so amazing, you know, it was so contagious and everybody wanted to be part of that whole thing. Even though we only say back in 89 twice, it's about that. When you listen to it, if you think about it being more the contagious of that, even though I made it a little sexualized, it sounds like I'm talking about a chick, but I'm really talking about the whole thing of how 89 was for us.
I'm going to ask what the story was behind Casey Swinger.
Do you want me to tell you?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
We're playing in Kansas City. This guy comes up, and it's just like really, it's kind of a place to play, like as you're flying over. And so we'd never played there before. And the guy that owns the place is telling the story how he got shot in the face as he's driving into the town from the airport and shit. And we're like, oh, wow, okay. So we get there. This dude shows up, and he was a big fan. And he was so stoked that we were going to play there. And he's a guy, you know, our age, like in his 50s and stuff. And all of a sudden we look over and there's this chick that's like so amazingly beautiful that we're all like, oh my God, who the fuck is that? You know, like just standing out, you know what I mean? Which I call sometimes a swinger, you know, just like she had all these tats and just the most beautiful chick you ever saw that had tats, just like a young hipster chick. And she's like 19 or something, right? And she's kind of looking at us and acting really weird. And then I kind of look and he goes, oh, hey, the guy's talking about no respect, what it meant to him. And it was a really cool conversation. He goes, hey, can I introduce you to my daughter? She's been listening to your stuff her whole life and she just loves Vain, but she's scared to talk to you guys because you're like legends to her because she's been listening to your music and she just heard like all the songs she loves. And we're like, oh, sure, man. So he comes over and talks to us. And everybody in the band's like, oh, my God. And our guitar player was filling in from Sweden. He's a younger guy. And he's just like instantly like in love with her. You know what I mean? And I just thought, wow, this is really cool. She's like, oh, I've been listening to you forever. And, you know, and I just had this whole idea like, wow, she's this like totally hip chick, just like watching us play, knowing all these songs so well, you know, and she's still young and beautiful. And we're kind of on the other side of that. You know what I mean? So I just had the idea of like a thing between her and me, but she's the KC swinger. You know what I mean? When I started writing the song, I kind of like had lyrics right away because I had this story. And so when I started writing it, I called the guy that's kind of that I work with a lot because I always send him shit and go, hey, do you like this song and stuff? Because a friend that I can trust that's not in the band doesn't play. He's a producer too. And the opening line of the song is, she was a KC swinger, got caught checking out a West Coast singer. He goes, that's pretty cool. Let me know if you want me to come help record, you know, and stuff. I dig the whole, I played him, you know, the chorus and everything. Then I called him back and I go, dude, I think I got to make myself look worse because she's so beautiful and I'm fucking, you know, instead of the West Coast singer, I think I'm going to change it to washed up singer. And he goes, what? And he goes, sing it for me. And I go, she was a KC swinger, got caught checking out a washed up singer. And he goes, oh, fuck, no, I got to work. I want to come listen to it in the studio. And I go, why do you like that so much? He goes, because no one's ever had the balls to do that. It's fucking cool. And then I told the other guys in the band and they go, oh, we love it. And I go, God, everybody really wants me to put myself down in this song. So that became kind of a theme of it. And then when I started writing the lyrics, then I go, I've never wrote a song from the perspective of somebody watching the audience. And that's why I put in the 1,000 degrees, get down on your knees. The songs from the stage, they rang like she's watching all this stuff, you know? So then I called my manager. So there's a lot of shit going on while I'm writing this, going, hey, I'm writing this song, but I'm using this 2 of our old song titles in there because I have to, because the person in the song I'm writing about is watching the band play these songs, you know? So that makes sense. She goes, but is that just too lame? You know, it's like, and she's like, no, because she works with new artists. She goes, no, it's called recycle. All the kids do it now, and the rappers and everything. I'm like, okay, good, fuck it, you know? So the whole thing is like a reference on her watching us.
Will she get to hear the song, do you think? When will she get to hear it?
She has no idea about it, actually.
She's going to lose her mind.
Yeah, I mean, I figured I'd wait till the record was out and she'd probably get a kick out of it.
Is that always cool for you, though, when younger generations still discovering No Respect all these years later?
I know, it's so cool. I mean, it makes you feel kind of old because last time I played in UK, people were coming up and I meet people that are married and their first date was the first tour, you know what I mean? And that was our first date and we're married now. But anyway, we want you to introduce you to our daughter. And that girl was like 14 or 15 and she's like in spandex and thinking what she thinks is a rock outfit. She goes, oh, I've been listening to your songs forever and all this stuff. To some people who are like their Frank Sinatra or something, like that's their song of their youth when they first made love or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's fun to meet people like that, but it does make you feel a little bit like, oh, fuck, we're getting up there, you know? But it is cool because we tried so hard to make it not lame. We never went like, we could make it more of a hit. Like even in the studio, we never made sure the vocals were too over big and I even told the guy that we were working with, I go, hey, this record's got to sound like a real rock and roll record. We got to be able to put like the Sex Pistols album on at any time. And if it sounds like it's too over, and just hear what it sounds like, it's a band playing, and, or AC/DC or something. And he goes, okay, I'm all for that. Because he had done stuff like Queensryche and more sophisticated technical shit. And so maybe that's part of it, that people still can relate to, that it sounds like a real band playing off the floor.
That's really good foresight that you had back then, especially during the 80s when everything was making it as big as possible. You almost did the opposite and it stayed big where everything else, just a lot of it sounds false.
Yeah, we probably had bigger vocals live turned up, because that's why when people saw us live, they go, sounds just like it, because we just didn't have a lot of fake stuff. The only thing that we did that was 80s is the bigger drum sound, but we dug that because it just sounded like an explosion to us. We thought that sounds cool.
You wanted it to sound like it's coming through a PA.
Yeah, but when we heard shot through the heart, all that stuff, we go, no, you know what I mean? We even had people that were songwriters and stuff, but when they were first trying to sign us, hear our song No Respect, you go, oh, you should change the chords to major and then you'll have a hit and all that. And we're like, oh, fuck that, so we were careful of that and not to overproduce everything. And we were lucky to have such a cool producer that was such a great engineer too, that let us do that and was into it, and the guy that signed us was into it. And yeah, so it's fun to have people come up and say different things about the music. We had this one thing called Vain Love. People call us and tell us how they met because of Vain, which is pretty funny.
What?
One chick wrote me one time, and that was my favorite one. She goes, when No Respect was hard to get a hold of for a while, this was a few years ago, and they were at some rock club in New York, and they put a song from No Respect up. She goes, oh my God, I love this album, but it's hard to get. Then she goes, oh, you should go up to the DJ. He's got a CD burner, and maybe he'll burn you one. You're hot, he'll do it. She goes, hey, is there any way you could burn me a CD? I'll give you the money for it, whatever, of that record. And then he's like, yeah, if you go on a date with me. And I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. So she said, I went back to my friends and go, that guy's a jerk. So then she said they played another song. She goes, fuck, I got to have that record. So she went back there and goes, here's my number, coffee only, bring the CD. And she goes, anyway, to make a long story short, that was a year ago and we're married now.
Oh, dude.
So that kind of stuff I always think's funny,
The UK really fell in love with Vain back in the day and heralded the debut album No Respect as a classic to this day. Do you remember a buzz beginning all the way overseas? Because things were kind of getting a bit shaky with Island Records, but in the UK you still managed to really create a buzz, and there was a full-on excitement over here for the band.
Oh, yeah. No, that was so cool. And I knew what Kerrang! Magazine was, and it seemed like it was this foreign, really cool thing that you could only find in certain stores. And when they wanted to put us on the cover and all that stuff, and we always got really good reviews and had critics and stuff like us, which even though we were kind of super glammy when we started, because we really were a rock band, we were a lot more like a hard rock band than really a glam band. Even though we had some songs that were kind of fun like that too back in the day, we were not trying to copy like Can I Rocks or, all that kind of stuff. We were way more influenced by Van Halen and AC/DC and Aerosmith and stuff like that. We really didn't listen to many of the records that came out in the era that we're from, really, you know what I mean? But we really didn't know, it was going to go down. There was a limited time for our careers anyway. Of course, we didn't know that. And most of the record companies we first started working with wanted us to write hit songs or work with songwriters and turn it into kind of like a Warrant kind of thing or, something like that as an example. Even before Warrant came out, that was just kind of how they did it. Even when Guns N' Roses wrote all their songs and became big, they still felt more like for us, that would be a better route to go. If we did a showcase or something, and especially since we were good players, a lot of people thought we could be like a Def Leppard thing, but with a different voice. And so they thought if we got together with big songwriters like Aerosmith was doing and stuff like that, and we didn't want to do that at all, you know what I mean? And I wanted to write my own songs. When we finally got somebody that really believed in our music, Island, we had no idea just how fucked up it was there. But things that were good about it is we got to do No Respect. And that label gives you 100% creative control. They don't even want you to have a hit record on your first record. They want you to have a fan record. Back when you got to do 1 or 2, 3 records and you built a career like U2, and they wanted us to do that, not knowing the whole bottom end was going to fall out of rock. And then the record company got sold before the record even came out. It's funny because I met Rick Rubin. He thought Vain, he liked the songs and stuff, but he thought Vain would be cooler if we were a trio, which is kind of funny because trios were not really happening then. Then Nirvana ended up being a trio, but he knew who I was and that I produced, other stuff and work with different artists and stuff. So he saw me one night at the Stone and asked me some questions about some band that somebody was working with. I'd rather not say who. And if I wrote songs for them, because he thought I was a good songwriter and their songs were better when I was working with them than the new songs they had. And I go, no, that's not true at all. And I thought, this is cool. Rick Rubin knows me. And I was kind of stoked. I was having a cocktail and he's hanging out at the club, He had just done the Cults record and all that. It had come out a while ago. And then he's like, so what's going on with Vain? And I go, oh man, we got a record deal. He goes, oh yeah, with who? And I go, Island Records. And without a beat, he just goes, oh wow, they have terrible promotion. And I didn't really know what to say. I had my cocktail. I'm like, oh, okay. And I just took a sip and I go, anyway, man, nice seeing you again. I'll talk to you later. What do you say to that? You can't go, oh shit. It's like nothing kind of fazed us. Me now, I'd go, oh shit, really? I'd call my lawyer and go, hey, I just talked to Rick Rubin. Is there a way we could get out of this shit? It's so funny when you're older too. Time, it seems like nothing now. Like 3 years ago to me is something that I thought I did like a couple weeks ago or something. 3 years doesn't seem that long now. Like this record we've been working on for more than 3 years or something. But it took us only 3 years to get a major record deal for when I first started the band. You know what I mean? So we were thinking it's taking forever to get a record deal. And so when we finally got one that was a real major record deal where they don't spend all this massive amounts of money making this amazing record, then it's like we weren't going, well, we should really do some research on there. But we had a good lawyer too. He said the main thing is that people are really behind you, and they were really behind us. But then when the bottom fell out of the whole thing, it was pretty tough. But when we went to England, we could see that the Island Records in England was still operating. And my manager at the time was pretty young too. And then later she managed the Four Non Blondes. And when they became huge, she saw, well, man, I could really see how everything just has to be working perfectly to cut through the maze of bullshit.
Is that how you got introduced to Linda Perry then, through management?
Yeah, well, she was kind of hanging out in the Haight-Ashbury and all that stuff too, and was doing acoustic stuff. I mean, I never went to any of those things because I didn't know about her, but she worked at like a hamburger place that was kind of a super hipster place. People were talking about how cool her voice was and stuff. So when she started working with her, then she'd hang out. She would just call me rock star. She's like, I want to be a rock star too, and all this shit. And I go, yeah. Well, then I heard her sing, and I go, fuck, you're our rock star, And she's like, cool. And she played guitars. She really got into studio stuff too. I got to go in with them on some of their first recordings too, since I was used to going to this little beat run studio that was near where we used to live, where I recorded the first Death Angel album. So I did some recording sessions and stuff with them. And then later I got to work with her on Christina Aguilera Beautiful, So that was really cool because she recorded that demo of that at my studio when she was doing it for herself.
How was it watching them blow up on MTV after you'd had all the trouble with Ireland, and then you see Four Non Blondes blowing up?
Yeah, I know that was sucked. But, I was happy for my manager and for her. So that was cool. We were like all big family. So, all that success we just thought was cool. We were a little bit bummed, about what was happening because we didn't even really know the reality of how bad some of it really was because our manager didn't even tell us. Like people were calling the management office going, I just heard Vain on the radio. I can't get the record anywhere. You know what I mean? Because what happened during the middle of all this shit, Island Records was on WEA. That's the distributor. Like every record company has a distributor that distributes the record. So then when it switched over to Polygram after it was sold, there was no more records from WEA. So they had to wait for it to be distributed by Polygram. So for a long time, you couldn't even find the records and stuff. We didn't know that it was as bad as it was. We kind of heard about it a little bit, but we were just preoccupied by playing shows and, having the first time in your life where you're signing autographs after every show and the craziness of being on tour. And then we got some breaks when we got the Skid Row tour, just when they were kind of exploding and we were popular in England too.
The London Hammersmith Odeon show was something special, I believe, even though you were ill on that night. It was a bit of a star-studded night, I believe.
Oh yeah, that was like the peak of kind of that whole first run, which was really cool because that was a secret show too. It's like we have tour shirts from that, but there was some kind of reason we couldn't say that, so it was a last-minute show. And Snake over the years had told me that it was the quickest sellout. The only thing that ever beat it was Queen. And then we got a really good response the next day saying it was the best opening band response since Van Halen opened for Black Sabbath or something like that. It was cool. And then we were just like all buddies with those guys. And we were hoping that's what we needed is like a tour in America or something too, where we could never get on a tour. So we were just doing the same same thing. And we thought, well, maybe these guys want to take us on tour, but they never wanted to again. I don't know if they just thought we'd rather have somebody worse, or they didn't work out that way or whatever.
Was that Hammersmith show the one which Lemmy jammed on stage with you as well? Was that the same show?
Exactly. Yep. Lemmy was backstage. I wasn't feeling that good, but I don't remember sucking or anything. I think it was still an okay show.
Didn't Robert Plant pay you a visit to your dressing room?
I was actually in a separate room that was a small room that I could be by myself and kind of have my warm-up tape, that I could be left alone and not talk too much. And, just like, because it was the last show. And I go, okay, you just got to do one more show. And this is the biggest one. I had this stuff called throat coat tea bags. I don't know if, since you're in bands, you've ever seen your singers using them. And I had like 10 of them or something. I was like, oh, just making a super contrast. And then my tour manager came and he goes, hey, somebody wants to say hi. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I thought maybe it was some kid or something. I had no idea, And all of a sudden, Robert Plant just walks in and shuts the door. And this is a really small space. So it really freaked me out. I think if I would have saw him regular backstage, I was going, hey, but he's just in this room by him. And he goes, hey, how are you? And I'm like, hey. And I just remember listening to the records, just thinking like all this stuff's in pop before I could play good or know how things work, just thinking everything that I'm hearing is impossible to do. You know what I mean? When you're, and it's all the best things I've ever heard. It's like, this shit is so badass. And then he was standing there, and he's just like so cool. And then he's like, oh, how are you not feeling quite good? And he goes, yeah, I think I'm going to have some tea. And then he looks at it, he goes, here in Britain, we usually use one. And then I go, oh, yeah, this is because my throat doesn't feel that good. He goes, oh, yeah. And I go, thanks for coming down. He goes, yeah, I came down to see some of the American singers I've been hearing about and all that stuff. And I go, oh, that's cool, man. And he goes, you guys do have one trick that you do. And I go, oh, really? What's that? And he goes, you all sing extremely, sorry for the bad English accent.
I was going to say it's a pretty good English accent, actually. I was quite impressed.
Okay, good. So he goes, you all sing extremely high and say fuck quite frequently, don't you? And then I just kind of went, oh, that's because we suck compared to you, so we just say that a lot to cover up. And then if I gave him a compliment, he would just not even say anything. He was just so cool. It's funny because I just played a special party with Sebastian, and he was still giving me shit that Robert Plant was at the show, and he didn't get to meet him, and I did, and all that shit. Because that was my show. So anyway, he was there. Afterwards, Lemmy was there. Then we were hanging out with him, and he's totally cool, And he was nonstop, and Robert Plant was loving it. I mean, even just cutting him down and stuff. Do you know what vari-speed is? Have you ever heard of the thing vari-speed? What they used to do, and they still do it today, you can use it as an effect too. Like Prince uses a lot too, what he did. But they would take the tape and slow it down just a little bit on the master tapes. And then someone would sing to it and it would be pitched down a little bit. And then that would be a little easier to hit a note, or it would sound more soaring. It would be like an effect too. And then they'd sing it in that pitch and then put it back to the normal pitch. And then your voice would be more like, and give it a little more air too. And also, maybe make it easier to hit something super high, It's just studio tricks they did all through, every era. And then some people did it to an extreme, like Prince of, if I was your girlfriend. So it sounds like, if I was your girlfriend. You know what I mean? It makes it sound kind of weird. People can't tell what they're hearing, but they just hear the weirdness of it. But I guess a lot of people thought Robert Plant used that a lot, like Jimmy Page liked that sound, and you could hit these high notes and make it easier on the singer and stuff like that. But I can hear it once in a while because I'm an engineer. But Lemmy was like, we were all like, oh, you got the whole band there and everybody going, oh my God, Robert Plant, And Lemmy's like, Planty, why don't you admit right now to these boys that you made all those millions using vari-speed, which was pretty funny. And then he just looked at him and he put his finger under his chin. He goes, vari-speed? What's that? And it's like, it's really funny. He did it live, so it's not really cheating. It depends what you think's cheating, because back when they started multi-tracking, people were thinking, oh, you could do it over later. That's cheating, you know what I mean? Or whatever. And it was funny, too, because then there was going to be a big party after the show. And then we go, are you going to go to the party? Robert was like, oh, I'm not sure. We'll have to see, And then Lemmy goes, nah, he's not going to come to the party. He's just going to go home and lay in his money. and then Plant would just laugh again. So it just made me think he's just a cool guy because he wasn't offended or wasn't a cocky, arrogant thing like Lemmy. I'm a fucking Robert Plant, you're nothing compared to me, kind of a egomaniac guy, But instead he thought it was great that he was getting cut down. He loved it. It was great to meet him. And Lemmy was really cool too. I've had a few experiences with him since then. When we did the jam at the end, me and Sebastian, we did Train Kept Rolling, and me and Sebastian had to trade off the vocals. And it was just, we no rehearsal or anything, just kind of from your memory, But I go, I'm just going to go wherever Lemmy goes and check that out. So I went over and he plugged in and goes, where do I plug in? So I just wanted to see what he was going to do. And I was standing right next to him, and the bass player goes, there's my rig right there. Just plug in right there. So he plugged in. And then he just took his hand on the top, like a movie or something, and just wrote it across the top of all the volume, trebles, everything. And they were all in 10. And then he looked at me and goes, my settings, easy to remember.
Oh, quality.
It was great. So I have some great pictures from them. I do have one picture on my phone with me, Robert Plant, and Lemmy.
Oh, man. Treasure that.
And I actually saw Lemmy a little bit before he died. And even though I'd hung out with him a few times, and even been in his apartment listening to music and stuff, just me and Danny West, went out drinking one night where I'm puking out the window and everybody's like, oh, that's not cool. And he goes, oh, that's what bourbon does. You shut up. Like somebody was giving me shit. And they thought Lemmy would think it was cool, but he thought it was uncool to make fun of someone throwing up. They acted like that's the normal act. So I didn't want to bug him, and I'd run into him a couple times, but I didn't want to go because that's kind of how rock is, especially people you haven't seen in a decade and shit. You don't go, hey, aren't we friends or whatever, Because he's on his little machine. But I go, hey, how you doing? And he goes, oh, what's up? And I just go, hey, remember this? And I showed him the picture, and he goes, that was a long time ago, huh, mate? And I go, yeah, I'd love to be back then again. And he just winked, looked at his machine again, so I just cruised away, I was at the Rainbow one night, probably not that long after we hung out in Hammersmith. That's when he was LA Lemmy, and he was wearing like cutoffs with a tan and stuff and hanging out at the Rainbow. And he had an apartment walking distance, so he could just pick up chicks and walk back to his apartment. And he goes, hey, you guys want to hear my new record? And I was with Danny West at the time, our old guitar player that just loved Motorhead. And we're like, yeah, sure, man. So we went to this apartment. He had all his German World War II paraphernalia all over the place, hardly any furniture, and this big ghetto blaster. And he put this cassette in and just starts playing it. We realized, God, he's going to play the whole fucking thing. We love to hear it, but I kind of wanted to get back to partying a little bit at the Rainbow too. Maybe,
That awkward thing when someone says, oh, listen to this song, and you're like, okay, we've got to the chorus. That's enough. That's all we need.
But it's fucking Lemmy, It's a fucking legend. You just go, hey, we really got to go, Lemmy. You know what I mean? And at the volumes he was playing, I'm like, okay, his neighbors, this is just a total LA Hollywood apartment complex because he's just cranking the shit. And we're just like, oh, yeah, it was really good, though. And it was kind of fun. Danny was like, I never dreamed that could happen. Lemmy playing me his new record at his apartment, so it was pretty funny. So I'd run into him once in a while. Another time that, when we did the party afterwards, it was pretty funny too, because he showed up at the party and it turned out that the after party, and it was after Hammersmith Odeon, after the Vain Skid Row tour, and they did it at a wine and beer garden. And I remember Sebastian was really pissed off about it because there was no Jack Daniels or any hard liquor. It was just wine and beer. And they go, who the fuck booked this shit? When we were on the Bon Jovi tour, they'd hand Bon Jovi Jack Daniels right when he got off stage. And this is my fucking tour now. I don't fucking feel like drinking fucking wine. So there was a big uproar about it, which I thought was kind of funny. But I was hanging out with Lemmy because I wanted to learn some rock and roll wisdom. And all of a sudden he's like telling me about stuff back in the day and all that shit. Like, oh, that's so cool, man. And then he goes, he kind of looks around and he opens his jacket and a big bottle of fucking bourbon. And he goes, hey, here you go. And I go, oh, man, cool. So I'm taking some Jack. And then he's putting it away, and then kind of keeping on the low down. And then he's like, yeah, and rock and roll this and that. And I'm telling me all this shit. So then my bass player comes by and I was taking a hit. So I give it to him and take a hit. And he goes, oh, I got another valuable rock and roll lesson for you. And I go, yeah, what's that? And he goes, when you're at a wine and beer garden party and there's only one bottle of bourbon, you don't just be giving it to all your mates. And I go, oh, sorry, man. I thought it was cool, because he's my bass player. And he goes, oh, I understand. And he takes it out and takes a sip and he puts it back in his jacket. He doesn't give it to me. And I kind of reach my hand and he goes, you can't have no more. And I go, what? And he goes, would it be a rock and roll lesson if I gave you more? And he was totally serious. So I'm just like, I guess not. Okay, I've got it. I'll never let that happen again. He goes, good.
Fantastic. I love it. Davey, I'll let you go, but thank you for the stories, dude. It'll make for a great episode.
No worries, man.
All right, man. You enjoy the rest of your day. You take it easy.
You too. See you, Rob.
Many thanks to Davy Vain for joining me on this week's Straight to Video podcast. Bit of useless trivia for you is that our old band TCC opened for Vain back around 2005 at Bradford Rios along with our pals New Generation Superstars, and Davy is in fact the very first person to ever sign our old school mailing list, which we were a pretty new band back then. I think I still have it somewhere. Don't forget the new album from Vain, Disintegrate Together, is out now and available from davyvain.com. I also want to send a thank you out to everyone who signed up for the brand new Patreon campaign which we've launched for our 80s video shop over in Alfreton, Derbyshire. We launched it yesterday and the response was simply amazing. A few months ago it was looking like our video shop museum may have to close its doors, as we've been sharing the space with another business who have since decided to move online. There was no way we could cover all the costs, but we've negotiated a cheaper rate and we're hoping with a little help we can continue to make it work. If you'd like to get involved or just want to find out, head on over to patreon.com/80s video shop and we'd love to have you on board. So that's all for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it and you'll come back next Friday for a brand new show. But till then, make sure to always be kind, please rewind and unwind, and I'll speak to you all real soon.